Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm live now, and I just want to, introduce myself first of all. For those of you that don't know me, I know there's a lot of new people I've met in the last week that still strangers. Hopefully, we'll be friends soon. And then, of course, there's family members and friends that I've known for years that I've talked to over the past week. Hi, Nave. Hi, Graham. I'm seeing some people hop on now, which is awesome. My name is Adiola Lalade Quintero, and this talk that I wanted to do. Hi, Erica. I see some people coming in. Is just a conversation on race, and this is my perspective. I'll preface it with that. This is my, piece of the story. There's millions of other Black people that have their own stories to share, and I thought it was important to come on and use my platform to share my story. Because when it gets down to the nitty and gritty of it and sharing, a post or, a tweet, not that I'm on Twitter, but like an Instagram post or, an image or sharing something somebody else has shared, like that's all great stuff. But I wanted to use my voice and come on here and speak from my own perspective. And I just realized I'm not wearing my earbuds. So I hope you guys could have heard me. So sorry about that. I hope that's better. Obviously, I've never gone live before, so that's okay. I don't do this, you guys. I'm seeing some other people hop on. If you're hopping on live right now, hi, Chelsea. Just drop a comment, say hi if you're watching live. And if you're catching the replay of this, go ahead and just say, hi, I'm watching the replay, just so, when I look back, I can see who watched. I have a lot of other friends who are going to check this out later. Oh, thank you. My husband's saying, we heard you, which is good. Hi, Belisa. I'm seeing some other people hop on. So, my name's Adiola, and I am a current graduate student at Regis University, and I'm a marriage and family therapy graduate student. And I love research. That's like a secret, geeky obsession of mine. But I'm also very passionate about minorities and about people of color's issues, and I have been for a very long time. And I think that it's amazing that everyone's getting out there and using their voice, and that I get to speak on this platform as a Black woman and sharing my perspective. So I wanted to thank you all for coming and kind of let you know how this chat I'm going to do is going to go on today. So first, I'm going to go through my own personal story because I believe that there's power in sharing your story and sharing your lived experience. And so I'm going to be sharing my personal story, dealing with race, dealing with racism, discrimination, the things that I've encountered as a Nigerian American woman. And then I'm going to go into kind of the current issues and things that are happening, obviously, with the protests and the looting, the rioting, different things on that measure, the murders, the police brutality, all of it. I'm going to briefly cover that. I feel like so much has been said, and that's not the intent of this conversation today. And then I'm going to go ahead and cover a couple of questions that I've gotten. I've gotten tons and tons of questions. I'm going to cover a few of them, and if I don't answer your question specifically, know it's for a reason, so just hang on because there's a reason why I'm going to answer certain questions, and then others I'm going to guide you in a certain way. And as a woman of color, as a Black woman, and as a student therapist, I'm very mindful of, my own mental health and the toll that it can take to even do this and share your story. But I also believe that there's healing in that and that there's power in sharing your story, like I said earlier. And so for me, this is a healing practice. I know a lot of people that I've talked to have said, oh, don't feel like you need to speak up for Black people or do this or do that. And I'm like, okay, but I want to, which is good. And if you want to, you should, right? No one should tell you, what you should and shouldn't do. That's why we live in America. But anyways, Hi, Meg, and hi, Charisse. I'm seeing some other people on right now. Hi, Kristen. One of my friends in the MFT program is hopping on. So, I'm going to start with my personal experience and story. And so I want you guys to kind of, wherever you are, I'm sure you're probably at home or in your car or somewhere, get comfy, sit, listen, and just take in what you're about to hear. And know that this is just one of millions of stories. And I am giving you all the opportunity today to hear mine because, like I said, there's power in sharing your story. And because maybe there are individuals who don't want to have that conversation with you. So just really take this as an opportunity just to hear and absorb what you're hearing from my own personal experience. So, oh, hi, Sam. Sam's on, and Myra. So who am I? Apart from Sean Quintero's wife, for those of you that are from his tribe and community, those from his business community that have hopped on, you probably just know me as Sean's wife. He talks about me a lot. But I am a first-generation Nigerian American, and I'm born and raised in Southern California. Shout out to the West Coast. I'm from Southern California. I'm also a middle child, and I have two brothers. I am the daughter of two proud Nigerian parents that were born and raised in Nigeria. I'm the wife of Sean Quintero, and he's a business Christian entrepreneur. I'm a marriage and family therapy student. I'm in a program right now. I'm also a teacher. I'm a preschool teacher, and never thought I would go down that route, but I love teaching the little ones. And I've been teaching for, I would say, a total of 4 years. 2 of those years have been preschool. And I love it so much. They've really broadened my heart and expanded my heart in so many ways. I'm a Christian. I am a racial healing advocate. I'm an avid researcher. I love reading books. A while back, I did tons of book reviews. For those of you that watch those book reviews, you know that I was trying to read 50 books in a year. I'm also a reader. Like I said, I'm an Enneagram 1. For those of you who have taken the test and you know what an Enneagram is, I'm an Enneagram 1. I value justice and I value doing things the right way, which probably plays into why I'm doing this stream today. I am a tea drinker. I do not like coffee. I've tried, but I can't do it. I drink black tea. I take my tea with cream and sugar, which I can't take it plain, which also lends to me being a sweet tooth. I'm a sweet tooth. I'm a dancer. I have lots of dance experience within my colleges that I went to in undergraduate studies. As a youth, I was really big into dancing, hip hop, contemporary, different styles. I'm a Pekingese dog mom. Those of you have probably seen my little puppy on, my Instagram or Facebook. And when I've been in class with different friends, I've popped him up. He's just so funny. Not a mom yet, but I'm a dog mom. Things that calm me are the sounds of the ocean and listening to worship music and talking with my friends. Now, I did this intentionally because I wanted to give you all a face and an identity and an experience and a story behind the person that you're staring at right now, which is a Black woman, right? I am more than just a Black woman. You've just heard me share part of my life, and I had to sum it up real quick. Obviously, there's lots more that make up who I am, but those are just the main things that stand out right now. And so know that when you are talking to a Black person or a person of color, or anybody, right? They all have this history that comes along with them. They have family, they have friends, they have people that love them, they have things that they're passionate about. They have little animals they take care of that they consider children. I know dog moms and cat moms get crazy. So, right, don't say they're not their babies, because they are. They have history, they have trauma, they have triumphs, they have defeats. They've had good times and bad times in their lives. And so those are kind of highlighting the good parts of who I am, and the things I'm probably most proud of up until this point in time. And something else about myself and being a Christian is that, and I'm borrowing this from Christine Kane, and she did an interview, and they were talking about your favorite Bible verse really explains who you are to a T. And I'm like, okay, let me think about this for a second. So I was like, oh, my favorite verse that continuously has come up in my life over and over since, I could pick a favorite verse has been Second Timothy 1:7. And Second Timothy 1:7, if you know that verse, it says, "For God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind." And that verse, I feel like, explains who I am as a person, because I have constantly been working on my mental health, like I said, and been working on, those negative thoughts that can trigger you, and really trying to allow God to put me in a place where I'm valuing myself and not allowing myself to be diminished by my circumstances. So walking in power and speaking in love, that the words that I speak are life-giving, that life and death is in the power of the tongue. And that is so crucial. Even if you don't believe in God, that words have power, and what you say can transform your life. So speaking in love, and then thinking clearly. As an Enneagram 1, I'll just say this, that I can get very, overthink everything and hold on, wait, we gotta plan it, we gotta do the checklist. My husband hates it, but I'm like, hold on, we gotta plan it all out, and we have to get it all ready to go. So, as an Enneagram 1, I can get so in my thoughts, and I can let my thoughts really, take over, and then I don't do anything at all. And so that verse really speaks to me, because I'm constantly in a state of letting go of those expectations and allowing myself to think clearly and be able to speak in love and to walk in power. So that's a little bit more about myself from a spiritual perspective. Now going into the racial side of things, I was born in 1992, millennial, for those of you that want to put that label on it. I was born in LA. My parents lived in LA for a couple of years when I was born, and I was born in 1992, and that's when the Rodney King riots happened. And my parents lived in LA, so they were around during that time, and they firsthand got to see just the destruction and the hurt in the community and the different things that were going on. So you could say that protesting is in my DNA. Not that I'm going out and protesting, but there's definitely that connection there. And then going more into my childhood and realizing that I was a racialized being and how people viewed me is something that I've had to process, right? The first time I realized that I was Black was in preschool. And when I really thought about this question, and I would even challenge you all sitting, watching, listening, wherever you are, to think about the first time you realized you were a racialized person. The first time I did was preschool. I remember I was in the dramatic play area. There was a bunch of kids running around screaming. I was a very quiet child too, and I was just looking, for something to play with, to grab, and I gravitated towards this little black baby doll. And I think I just remember staring at it for the longest time. I've never seen a black baby doll in the school that I go to, and it was so for me, I was just just staring at it, not really thinking, but I started to see the differences, and that's when I realized. The first time I realized that being different was not okay was probably second grade. That's when I started to hear different comments from different kids about being Black and being different, and my hair being different. And, I have moved through circles in my educational spheres, from elementary to middle school to high school to college, and they were mostly white spaces. So I was usually one, if not one of a few Black people within those spaces. And school is where you spend the most time when you're a kid, right? And your identity is solidified there as well. And so the first time I realized, being Black is not the best thing, was in the second grade. And so a couple of my experiences with racism and discrimination, I remember from that point on, I would do my best to assimilate, which is a word, you can look that up, but just to try to blend with another culture, right? Because coming as a Nigerian American, my parents are still proud Nigerian Americans. They proudly speak the language. we wear our traditional attire. We eat jollof rice. If you know what jollof rice is, oh, it's amazing. If you don't, you need to check it out and be blessed because it's the best food ever. So I was proud of where I came from, who I was. My parents never had this idea that being Nigerian was something to be looked down upon. In fact, we're a proud people. If you talk to any Nigerian person, we're very vocal and very proud about our culture. But what I quickly realized was outside of the home and in those spaces, being proud of my culture was not okay. For the longest time, I got teased for the gap in my teeth, my beautiful smile here that you guys see, and I was questioned about it so much, right? I was told, like, oh, did you lose a tooth? What's wrong with your teeth? Like, why does it look like that? And my mom has this exact same gap, and she's never gotten it changed or, altered or anything like that. And so I knew that that was something part of my identity that was, a part of me. And in Nigerian culture, and I think Ghanaian culture as well, and Nambia, having a gap, many of those African communities and ethnicities have this gap, and it is actually a symbol of fertility and a symbol of beauty in our culture, and it's a natural part of our genetics, right? This is how I was born. And so really having to not smile for so long I smile so much now. Those of you that know me, I'm always smiling and laughing, but it wasn't like that growing up. I didn't want to draw any attention to myself because then the questions and the, would diminish me as a person. I even remember going to the dentist, and the dentist was like, oh, we can fix that for you. We can close that gap. We have braces. We have this option, that option. Didn't even ask, like, if it was something that I wanted. Just assumed I didn't like it. Assumed that I thought it was ugly and it needed to be changed. And so even instilled systemically, there's that belief that because something's different, it's not beautiful and it needs to be changed. And that also being a part of my culture and being Black was, I was like, no, you're not gonna, I was outspoken as a child. So I was like, no, like, I'm fine, I'm okay. And my mom never changed her gap. And so I'm like, why am I going to change mine? It's beautiful. But that's something that I had to learn over time and shake off those ideas of beauty. And so I, obviously didn't do that. And if my children have this beautiful gap, I am going to celebrate it with them. Thank you guys. I see a lot of you saying, my smile is beautiful. Thank you so much. So another thing that in my life has come up multiple times, is this term called an Oreo. And for those of you that are Black and have been in predominantly white spaces, you know what I'm talking about. And for those of you that don't, I'm going to explain it a little bit. So growing up, I, was put in the best schools. My parents valued education so heavily. Nigerians value education so heavily. They put me in, the best schools, and those schools just happen to have predominantly white students. And being a Black individual, there's, different types of Black people, right? You've heard of different types of people, maybe individuals that don't have as much access to education and resources like I did, and grow up in different communities where how would you say, like, the conversations and the language and the phrasing and slang is different. So the communities I grew up in were predominantly white spaces where there wasn't much slang or variation in what we would say. So I grew up speaking like this, and this is how I talk. And so going to school and starting to be around other people that had ideas and stereotypes and prejudices against Black individuals started to say, oh, you're an Oreo. And I'm like, what's that? And that means that, yes, you're Black on the outside, but you act white. You talk so well. You speak so eloquently. So it must be, wow, you speak so eloquently for a Black woman or a Black girl, or you're so smart for a Black girl, or you're so well spoken. Your parents must really have, trained you well. Those are all microaggressions. And if you guys have heard that term, those are those little slight comments that they're like mosquito bites. I was explaining this to my friends a little bit back. They're like mosquito bites, right? Nobody likes mosquito bites. And if you go camping, there's always that one person, I don't know why, but there's always that one person that never gets a mosquito bite, right? And they're like chilling and they're happy and they're like, oh my gosh, like no mosquito bites, like this is the best trip ever. And then there's the other person who's like getting bit up every second, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, are you not feeling these mosquito bites? Like they're annoying me. So microaggressions are like mosquito bites, right? Not everybody gets hit with microaggressions, but some people are more susceptible to them, and people perpetuate these microaggressions without even thinking about it. So it's not something that consciously is coming forth. It's just coming from a place of curiosity, but often that curiosity is rooted in racist beliefs and in beliefs that Black people or people of color are somewhat less than and have to be questioned about different things like their hair, their skin color, the way they talk. So that's something that I've had to deal with my entire life. And I would say that was something that I internalized along the road and led to me being a more quiet individual, because I didn't want to draw attention to myself. Like I said earlier, right? I didn't want to smile. I didn't want to, speak up, because then people are going to pay attention to me and then they're going to ask me questions. And those questions are going to come out weird, right? Because they don't, understand the context of what they're asking. And those microaggressions are going to keep happening and happening. And so I just, went to a place of, I'm just going to blend in like a chameleon, and I'm not going to, I'll be friends with everybody, and I'm just going to, chill and be fine and not ruffle any feathers, right? But all of that internalization really takes a toll on your self-esteem and your self-identity and how you view yourself in the world and what you place on yourself as value. And over time, like that's stuff that I had to unlearn. And then the last example I'll give you guys, because there's so many, but I'm not spending all day today talking about all my racist and discriminatory experiences. But there is one more I'd share because it's close to my heart, and being a proud Nigerian American, it's impacted me in a multitude of ways and has really propelled me to be conscious of my culture and to speak up for it. So in the 7th grade, I had the opportunity to go to Nigeria with my mom. I had never been to Nigeria. Like I said, I grew up in Southern California. My parents were from Nigeria, and she was going to see some of our aunties and my great-grandmother and things like that. And so my brothers and I had the option of going. My brothers were like, oh, we don't want to go. And I'm like, I'll go. So I went with my mom, and I took 2 weeks off of school, and this was in middle school. And I went, and it was a beautiful experience. You guys can't imagine, the culture in Africa is so beautiful. Like, there's just so much. We stayed in this really big 2-story house with my great-grandmother and cousins, and we went to the radio station my mom grew up hosting, and we went to the private clubs and things like that, and it was just so beautiful. The streets are beautiful. The people are beautiful. I just had a very enriched experience when I went there. And so coming back home with my little, I went to Nigeria homecoming trip, I was excited to share, with my classmates. And as you can imagine, coming back into a predominantly white space, and a space where children have been told a similar narrative for so many years, brought along its own challenges. So coming back to class, the questions I heard were like, did you sleep outside with the lions and monkeys? Do they even have streets there? Do they have any normal stuff? Do they have regular buildings? Do they have cars? Like, wow, I can't believe you came back so safe, and different things like that, to where I started to sit with that. And at first I was defending, right? Like, no, it was beautiful. No, yes, they have technology. We have phones. Yes, they have TVs. Yes, right? So you can imagine for a middle school is crazy enough already, right? But for a middle schooler who's trying to figure out themselves as a person, I had to, defend that as well, took its own toll. But then I started to realize, oh man, there's that danger of a single story. If you guys have ever seen that TED Talk, go watch it. It's so good. But there is danger in a single story, right? Lots of us have grown up watching The Lion King. But let me just tell you that it's more than just lions and desert out there. There's a people, there's a history, there's a culture that's so rich. There's expansive technology. There's, things that we don't even have in our country that are there already. And so I would say the danger in taking on a single narrative, and the reason why I'm sharing my personal experience, is to let you know that there's so much we don't know, and that's okay. But come from a place of wanting to learn instead of, coming from a place of, well, this is what it is, and thinking you know everything, because that's not always the case. So that's the last experience I'll share with you all, but those have kind of shaped me into really exploring racial issues. And as I was exploring my own identity, and I've been on this journey for a couple of years of interviewing family members and creating a kind of like a genogram. If for my therapy friends, you'll know what that means, or like a family tree of like our history and our legacy and different things like that. And it's been eye-opening. The first thing I learned, I think I told my husband when I was doing some peer-reviewed articles on the history of slavery and the history of Nigeria as a whole, and what I found shocked me. I think I was upset for like a week. Like, I couldn't even talk to him without yelling, and I think he remembers. I was just like, and oh my gosh, and there was so much, right? And I think the biggest part of it was that growing up in school, I had never heard these stories. I had never heard this narrative. I had never heard the truth, right? I had only heard, a very veiled explanation for events that happened to Black people, of slavery, of Jim Crow, of the individuals that stood up for equality and equal rights and things like that, of the nation of Africa and how it was viewed as a whole, of epigenetics and of different things that I was mind blown, you guys. And I think when I learned that, I was like, oh man, it just sat heavy on my heart, and I was praying and I was going back and forth, and I was like, how do I reconcile all of this, right? Because here I am, first generation Nigerian, growing up in America, being told a single story, but having my own lived experience, and then learning that there's so much more that's been twisted and just turned in such an ugly way. I was in a heavy place, right? And so as I was like, praying and things and thinking about like my role in all of this, and as a passionate person about this subject, God put it on my heart to like start doing more research, really sit with how you're feeling, really uncover what's going on, really process the emotions, process the racism, process the discrimination, talk to people that are going to support you, get a therapist, do different things like that I've done over the years to really process my own experience. And so that's kind of led me to where we flash forward, right? COVID happened, and now we are all forced to kind of sit in the room together. And this is kind of my little analogy or explanation on how everything is unfolding and how we are where we are today, right? So here's my analogy. Imagine yourself in a house. The world is in a house, right? And there's people that are in a room, and I would say those are Black individuals and Black folks, right? And then something bad happens to those people, and someone else in the house says, oh, let's sweep it under the rug. It's fine. We're cool. We don't have to look at it anymore. It's great, right? And then they leave the room, but that's the room where the Black people sleep, and that's where, the room they own. And the rest of the house is for everybody else to enjoy. And so after a while, that thing that they swept under the rug starts to stink, right? Like maybe it was something rotten, something ugly. And after a while, the people that live inside the room, that sleep inside the room, are like, do you like smell that? Like that smells so bad. Like what is that smell? And they're like, yeah, everyone in the room can smell it, and they know that something's there because they feel it, they experience it every day. And every day they come out of the room and they tell the other people that live in the house, hey, there's this horrible stench we have to do something about. It's impacting us. We're starting to feel sick, We're feeling horrible. We got to deal with this, guys. Like, it's a big issue. And the rest of the people in the house are like, what are you talking about? We don't smell anything. Like, I guess if you think there's a smell, here's some air freshener. That'll help. And so the people that live in the room go back to the room, spray the air freshener, and they're like, well, okay, like that kind of worked. I guess we're okay for now. And then boom, another wave of that stench hits. Because things that are rotting and ugly and stinky aren't just going to dissipate, right? They're going to continue to stink until you fix it or until you address it or clean it up. And so now, people can leave and go in this house. So they're not stuck there, but the people that live in the room, the Black people, have to stay in that room at night. They have to sleep. They have to reconcile with this smell that they're smelling. But everyone's been able to leave and come and go. And hit COVID. Now everyone's stuck in the house and nobody can go anywhere and you're forced to stay in with each other. And so now that smell that you've ignored for, I would say, maybe 400 years plus, however long slavery, ago that was, starts to smell the entire house, right? And now everybody can smell it, and it is horrible. And they are like appalled, and they are disgusted, and they're like, "Why didn't you guys tell us? I can't believe like this was here all along. Oh my gosh, like there's this horrible smell. We all have to jump on it now." And so everyone goes into the room and they lift, up that rug and you can see it. And it not only smells, but it's kind of grown like, these ugly tentacles and all this stuff that we now have to deal with. So that's my little analogy of where we are now, right? We as a world, as a nation, are all stuck in this house together. We can't just come and go as we want. And this house, I would say, is probably, mitigated by social media and, just by what we see when we, go outside and things like that. And that smell, that thing that we put under the rug, 400 years ago and said we dealt with and that we're all good now, it's not all good because we never addressed it. We never pulled that rug up fully and looked at the issue and cleaned it up and worked together to make sure that no one's getting sick from this ugly thing, that nobody is, being affected by it. And so now what we are seeing is not only like a large scale grieving of this issue, but we're also seeing a lot of individuals waking up to seeing something that's been there all along, right? The people that live in the room have firsthand experienced it all along, and they've been trying and trying and trying for so long to tell people that it's been there, right? And that it's horrible, it smells, it's going to make us sick if we don't take care of it. But the other people have had the privilege of ignoring it because they didn't live in the room. And now that we're all in the house together, we all have to reconcile with this thing that's been created. Notwithstanding whatever, you were born as, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, American, Pacific Islander, no matter what that is, we all have to deal with it. And I think it's interesting because we're also seeing this across the world. I don't know if some of you guys have seen the worldwide protest. In Hong Kong, they're having protests. In Trafalgar Square in London, they're having protests. In Japan, they're having protests. I think I don't know if it was New Zealand, but all over the world. So this isn't just an America issue. This is a heart issue. This is a humanity issue. This is that ugly thing we put under the rug, but everyone had a part in it because we ignored it, right? And so now we're forced to reconcile with that. And that can bring a lot of feelings, right? That can bring guilt. That can bring shame that, oh my gosh, I ignored it. It was there and I ignored it. And I was the one that gave that air freshener to say, it's fine, just, cover up the smell, because I thought that would work. I didn't take it seriously. I perpetuated it, So now we have to deal with all of these issues together. And everyone's really looking where to turn. And this is kind of where my research has taken me. And now being in this house together in COVID, and just the lifelong research I've been doing and the work that I've been doing on myself has really brought us to this place. And I fully believe, whether you believe in God or not, that this is a God moment for me, because a year ago when God said to seriously start, doing my research and my homework and processing my own experience on racial issues, I was like, okay, like, sure, but no one's really talking about it right now. I know, right? It's not like hip, like, will anyone care? Will anyone listen? Is anyone truly being affected by this? And God was like, do it. And I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to do it. It doesn't matter if nobody's talking about it. It doesn't matter if everyone's like kumbaya right now, everything's good. Do it because he said so. And so now flash forward to COVID and to the murder of George Floyd and countless others, Breonna Taylor as well. The things that I have been studying, researching, developing, training, preparing for, that I was like, no one's going to care about it. Everyone now is talking about it. Like, I can't tell you how many friends are asking so many questions. People are looking for resources. People want to talk to somebody. People want, what do I do? Where do I start? Where do I go? And so part of me using my platform and my voice is really to encourage you guys to, one, just take a deep breath. Like, everybody right now, if you're watching, take a deep breath, go. Take one more, because I don't know if you did it with me. Take one more. And just be here with me in the moment. Because that was a lot, right? That was a lot. And many of the things that I've been hearing recently from white allies and from non-Black people that are also, in this with us are saying, this is so much. I'm so tired. Like, I've done the post. I've called my congressman. I've given money. I've blacked out Tuesday, yesterday that happened. I've put my platform. I've interviewed people. I've talked to that one Black friend I know. Like, I'm tired and this is exhausting. And what I want to say to that is I validate that experience. Like, you are probably feeling tired, but I also want to say welcome. Welcome to the room. That analogy I gave earlier, you're now in the room. If you're watching me, you're now in the room with me, right? You're no longer in that other part of the house where you can just ignore what's going on, but you're in the room and you're realizing, oh my gosh, this sucks. This stinks and this hurts. And I don't know how to deal with it. And so part of also my lived experience and, millions of other Black people's experience is that we have had that feeling of this sucks since we were born, right? I shared a couple of stories of my experience, and there's some other ones that are, even uglier that I didn't share, but we've been processing this since we've been born. And along those lines, we've been suppressed at processing this. When we want to say, this doesn't feel right, or I'm not sure about that, we've constantly been silenced and silenced and silenced and silenced and said there's no smell, said there's nothing wrong, right? And so we've also had to process that, right? And so I just want to say welcome to the room, welcome to the conversation, welcome to the fight, if you want to call it. And thank you for showing up. And I want you to know that it's not going to feel good. And that's something that a lot of people have said, well, I just want to do my part and I want everyone to, be better and kumbaya. But I want you to know that it's not going to feel good. And there's going to be some time where you're probably going to go through your own grief as well, and your own grieving and your own reconciling with the shame you might be feeling, or, just different things like that. And so I want to say that that's normal. That's a normal part of the experience, to start feeling all of these heavy emotions. And it's also normal to want to push that away again and, not deal with it. But I feel like the fact that we're all in the house together now, we're all in the room, we kind of have to deal with it. So let's deal with it, right? So my research that I've been doing recently and working towards getting published is about multi-generational transmission of these cultural wounds and how we can heal them and what we can do as a society, as a world at large, to really tackle these things. So I know a lot of you were probably expecting me to come on here today and give you a ton of resources and answer all your questions. And I'll answer a few, and I will lead you to some resources. But there's just three things. If I can leave you with anything, there's three things that I want to leave you with. And this is for my friends that are my non-Black friends, and for my white friends, and for, those that are joining us that are not Black. There's a three-point message that I want to share with you. As you're looking for what to do, and as you're like, okay, how do I do this? How do I really engage? I want to get rid of, that racism in my life. I want to get rid of, those ideas that have been perpetuated in society. There's three things you should start with, and three things before you even pick up a book, watch a movie, before you, post a hashtag, before you participate in anything. There's 3 things you should do. One is really sit with yourself and consider your approach and your intent, right? And do a heart check. That's kind of what I like to call it, is like, do a heart check. And if that literally means sitting there and like putting your hand on your heart and being like, okay, let's think, do that. Think about why. Why are you doing this? Why are you jumping in? And what are you hoping will happen as a result of you getting involved? And who are you looking to talk to in these instances? Who are you looking to approach, right? And think about your approach too, right? There's this thing, like I said, my analogy that we've been dealing with for 400 years plus. It's been swept under the rug and told it's not invisible. And now everyone's saying, oh yeah, we see it now, right? So there's a lot of hurt and grief in the Black community about that. And with friends that want to jump in and want to now dive into this experience, there could be some hesitancy, there could be some backlash, there could be, some of that coming your way. And I just want to encourage you to enter into this as a learner. That's the only way you're going to get through. If you enter it as like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, like, we're a very individualistic culture as well, right? We all want to, achieve on our own. We all want to do our own thing. But something that, should be learned about the Black community is we're very collectivist culture and a very, tight community culture. And so if you want to jump into this with us, really think about your approach and think about your intent and check your heart and check where you are, and that's not a hard thing to do. Just check where you are. If you think, man, I think I've done some racist-ish, in my past, check that. That is okay, right? We've all been breathing the same air for so long. We've all been in the same systems, in the same social processes, right? We're going to pick up some things. I've probably picked up some things that might be a little racist or discriminatory or prejudiced, right? That's part of our human experience. But it's okay to acknowledge those things. So think about your approach. The second thing I would say is to listen. This one is super, 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 super duper hard if you love to talk and you just want to get in there and do stuff. Listen, because you're not getting the full picture if you just jump right in, right? A doctor doesn't go into the surgery room with the lights off and, starts waving his scalpel around. That's crazy, right? No, he turns the light on. He has his team there. He, pulls back the, okay, what are we looking at? Where's the x-ray? Let's really examine this. Let's just look. Let's listen to the heartbeat. Let's check this out before we even make a cut, before we even try to fix anything, right? The listening part is so crucial. And I think a lot of you that are on today, you're participating in that. You're hearing my story. You're listening. But just know that it doesn't end with just my story. There's so many stories that need to be heard. There's so many experiences and perspectives that are yet to be told and heard. And so coming from that learner perspective, like I said, and approaching, as a learner and wanting to just listen and sit and listen and really take in this experience, because it can be a lot once you start to take it in. But listen. And then the third thing I would say is to learn. And this is the part where I know resources come in handy. Resources are awesome, right? Books, I love books. Learn, right? This is where you do your part and you don't place the burden on your friends of color or your Black friends to educate you on what's going on. I know I'm coming on here today and I'm sharing from my own personal experience, like I said, because it's healing for me. And if you take benefit from this, then that's awesome. But learn. Google is your best friend. Hey Siri, give me some books on, X, Y, and Z, right? Technology is at our fingertips. There is no reason that we even have to place this burden on anybody else, right? If you're in the room, take responsibility to learn. Honestly, Google's amazing. Like I said, you can find just about anything. So that's my 3-point takeaway. First is think about your approach, check your heart, listen, and that can take a while, and learn. And something Dr. Anita Phillips said on her interview with Christine Kane was about the community of Black people and how action is our love language, which I totally believe is true. When she said it, she was like, I'm just speaking for myself, but I also want to speak for the Black community. I'm like, that's me too. Action is totally my love language. Like, if you make something for me, like, I know you love me. If you do something for me, I know you love me. And so after you take on these three things, approaching, listening, learning, and let me say that those three things are not just a one and done. It's not a checklist. It's a lifelong experience. It's a lifestyle change, right? Take on those three things, and then once you start to gather and you start to experience, take action, right? And that can come in so many different forms. I'm not saying go out on the street and protest, because it's crazy right now and people are getting hurt in that process as well. I'm not saying to, if you don't have money to donate, don't donate your money. I know COVID's hit us hard as well, and a lot of us are struggling right now just to maintain, some people that I've heard to maintain their finances and things like that. So I'm not saying like give all your money away, but find an area where you feel like you can take action, where you feel like you're doing your part. And that is kind of what I will end with. Now I'm going to go on to some questions that I've gotten from some individuals. I haven't really been watching the comments, but if you've been commenting, thank you. I see Meg, I see Myra. I'm glad you guys are on. If you have like some questions I didn't answer, still feel free to put it in the comments, because I will check later, and maybe we'll do a part 2 of this video. But for now, I got a couple of general questions that I wanted to address. These are things I'm processing myself, so know that I'm not an expert. I'm only sharing my own experience, but as a grad student, as a leader in my community, I feel like it's my duty to impart what I have. So this is me doing my part. So I've heard from others, like, how do I support and find the right words? And how do I become anti-racist? How do I be a respectful ally? I've signed the petitions, I've held the signs, and still feels like I'm not doing enough. What can I do? I know I have privilege. How can I use my privilege to help those that are underprivileged? How do I approach, my Black friends and support? Is there a script I can use? Are there specific words to say? How do I unlearn racism? So this goes back to my 3 points that I mentioned earlier. Check your heart, listen to those stories, and learn. Nothing's ever going to come out perfect. I know a lot of people are worried about, well, if I say something, I don't want to get attacked. I don't want to face that wrath from people. When you're speaking out against something that is unjust, there's still evil in the world, right, folks? Like, there's still people that just have hate in their hearts, and that probably will not change. But when you start to speak those things and, uncover that, what was under the rug, right, and speak light into darkness, right, there's more people often than not that are going to encourage you on your journey. So it doesn't matter where you start. Even if you think, well, if I ask for resources, then I'm burdening other people. Ask. You don't know who is willing to give you those resources. You don't know who's willing to do that with you. So ask. They have not because they ask not, right? So ask. And so I'm glad some of you asked those questions. And like I said, it's a lifestyle change, and it's something to take on and adopt into your life. As far as learning to approach, listen, and learn. It's not something that you just check off and, yay, we're all anti-racist now. We're all not prejudiced. No, you guys know that's not how it works. We've been breathing in the same culture for so long. Everybody, and I mean everybody, even Black people, have their own things to process and unlearn. So take a breath. It is a lifelong journey and experience, and that is okay, right? No one's going to have it all together. I don't have it all together. I know some of you are like, okay, no, I don't have it all together. So another big question that I've gotten from some folks is how to talk to kids. And this is I really did want to answer this question coming from my background as a preschool teacher, and not a mom yet, but a dog mom. But coming as a preschool teacher and an educator, you are never too young to have a conversation about race, right? When I shared my story earlier, I realized I was a racialized being in preschool. right? I started seeing those differences right away. Kids know. Kids are so smart, y'all. Like, the preschoolers I teach are so flippin' smart. Like, oh my goodness, like they know so much and they listen and they learn. So they're already doing the 3-point step. Maybe we should, pay attention to these kids, right? They listen, they learn, they pick up how you are acting and how you are reacting to the world, what's coming out of your mouth, how you're treating others, They're watching all of that and they're little sponges and they're soaking it all in, right? So if you're thinking and worried about how to talk to your kids, I bet you they already have in their brain questions that they want to ask, things that they want to point out, right? Don't shy away from those. And, reach them at their level, right? If you're talking to a 3-year-old, you're not going to go into like the detail of gruesome murders, but if you're talking to them, ask, hey, what do you think's going on right now? And they'll tell you, and you might be surprised with how much they know, but engage your kid on their level. More often than not, kids will, and I've heard this in a webinar about how to talk to your kids about racism, kids will be further along than you are. They would have already processed things that you haven't processed and they're ready to talk about it. So that's where it takes that learner's perspective to really be okay with knowing that you don't have all the answers either. And I know that's probably hard for parents, is like, well, I'm the example, I'm supposed to set this, but they're watching you. If they're watching you, tell them that it's okay to learn, it's okay to make mistakes, they're going to take that identity as well and learn, I don't have to have it all together, but it's okay to keep growing and learning, right? And don't we want our kids to keep growing and learning? That's an amazing perspective to take. I know there's a lot of adoptive and foster parents that have Black children, and they might be white or a different race. And I've been asked, like, how do I talk to them? What's my role? I would say the same thing, right? Don't shy away from talking about race, talking about identity. And I'm sure like many adoptive parents, like you've had that conversation, because if you're white and you're adopting a Black kid, there's some stark differences, right? But don't shy away from that and really talk to them about it at their level with how much they want to discuss with you. And let them know that it's safe to talk about race with your parents, especially if you are of a different race than your adoptive child, right? Don't be scared of that, right? Because then they're going to see your worldview, right? And if you're scared of it, then it's teaching them like, oh, this is something to be afraid of or not to bring up, right? And that puts in that internalized racism, and that's what we don't want. So I feel like for adoptive parents especially, that can help. Somebody asked me about the Black community and businesses and how we can put more value on ourselves and not have this mindset of help a brother out or cut a deal for your sister or whatever. Which, if you're like in the Black community, you've probably heard that. That's probably a question for my husband, because he's the business one. I'm I'm the researcher. I'm the relational person. But oh, hi Christine, I see your comment. I would say same thing. We're all trying to unlearn things, and that includes unlearning harmful identity types, right? Unlearning the idea that Black people are somehow less than, and unlearning that, oh, because they're Black and I'm Black, they're going to cut me a deal. Like, value them, pay them for their work, right? Don't devalue the things that they bring to the table. Okay, so there's that. Somebody said, oh, they were worried about saying the wrong thing. It's always better to say something than nothing at all, right? And come from that learner perspective. I might not have the answers, but I'm going to speak up, against this. Always speak up for what's right. I feel like that's my personal perspective. Somebody also asked, how do I deal with family and parents who are unaware of their biases? Woo! This one's a meaty question, right? Like, you might be in this and you might have family members that have said things over the years, and you're like, oh, I know they're racist or they're biased or they've, said X, Y, and Z. And I'm on this journey and like, I'm worried about that conflict with my family. I always say live by example. Just live your life and your family will see the way you're living your life. And in those moments when things come up and you're able to have those discussions, just express your worldview, express how you feel about these things. Even if they don't agree. And this is the part where people like want to shy away from doing anything at all because people might not agree with you. And then it's like, well, I don't want to do anything at all. I don't want to like cause trouble. But if, as a Black community, we've been troubled so much, and now we're finally able to express this grief and express that we deserve, just not even a shred of humanity, but we deserve all of it, and if that's something that a family member's not understanding, educate them, right? Hey, here's an article I found. Oh, if they're bringing up like a statistic or a generalization, challenge that generalization. If they're saying, well, all people do this and all this, like, is that true? Just challenge it. And I'm not like trying to have you guys fighting with your family as you're stuck inside, but just plant seeds. That's something else I say. Just plant little seeds. You don't have to go to war within your family, but plant seeds because you don't know later on you can, you've already planted that seed, made that connection, and it'll be easier to have future conversations because you've done it in such a gentle way, in such a loving way. Is, like I said, speak in love. We're not here to cause more divisiveness and more division. Like, that's not what we want, right? Like, so speak in love with anything you're bringing. Think about your approach with your family, right? How are you approaching them? Are you like coming guns blazing, or are you just like, hey, why don't you check this, So that's that. I got a couple other questions. This is for my Black folks. It says, if I'm a person of color feeling extreme levels of anxiety, how do I deal with that? And this is where, oh, hi, Erica's on, and Shell's on. This is where resources come in handy. This is where therapy comes in handy. This is where logging off, shutting the computer off comes in handy. Turning off notifications comes in handy. It can be a lot for a Black person right now to be processing and rewatching and re-traumatizing themselves with everything that they're seeing. You don't have to do that. You can take a break, you should take a break. Like, please take a break. Like, I'm giving you permission now, take a break. Step away, recharge yourself. There was a study done by a vocal coach that laughing actually clears your lungs, which I found was amazing. So please find something, like find a funny video, watch something funny, like tell some jokes with your friends, find a reason to laugh and get that air in your lungs and, release those endorphins that are going to make you feel good and get away from things that are going to create a toxic mindset. Because what you don't want is to keep watching like the violence that's occurring and to have that vicarious trauma happening with you. So really step away. 2 more questions or 3 more questions, and then I'm going to point out where you guys can find resources. And my husband will post, and I think in the description, there's my website there. I have resources. But another question is about education. Somebody asked, how do we start to create what Black and minority students need in order to shake up, a poverty mindset and prepare them for success? If we want to contact an organization to find out their policies on racial equality and anti-racism, what do you feel is the best way to address it, or the right question to ask, or to make sure we get a good answer? Because what sounds good, and right to someone who doesn't live by it may be totally off base to someone who does. Here's my answer for that. And as an educator myself and somebody who values diversity in our institutions, look at their mission statement. Look at what they've already put out about their discrimination policies, their diversity statements. Look at that stuff. Like I said, think about approach, listening and learning. So before you even talk to anybody, think about, okay, what do I want to do with this? What change am I trying to enact? Look at what they already say. If it's, we value all different, types of people, things like that, and you want to come alongside that mission statement and you want to uphold that in your educational sphere, especially for my teachers, and you're looking like, well, how do I integrate that in my classroom? I don't want to ruffle feathers. Look at what they already have and say, hey, I'm upholding this policy that we already have about equality and about discrimination, and really want to give every student an opportunity, to live out this statement that you've already put. And if they don't have a statement on discrimination and emissions, policy, like that's another problem. And I wouldn't say fight that battle alone. Probably, do a little research first, but like every institution should have some kind of statement regarding discrimination, diversity, and if they don't, that's something that they should check. Let's see. What are my favorite organizations that support racial equality and are actively anti-racist? So we know where to spend our money. Some of you have coins you want to spend. That's awesome. Like I said, Google's your best friend. Check out what's in your community, because the resources I give could be specific to Colorado Springs, but for those of you watching all over the place, check out what your community, your local community already has, and get involved on the local level, right? That's the best way to enact change. Like sometimes we want to go so broad and we just want to get it all, tackle it all. It starts with our communities. So we can't change our communities, we can't change our world, right? So look at what your communities already have and then check out the resources I have as well that can help guide you. Last question I got was about looting as a form of protest. Somebody wanted me to expand on that. So I want to talk a little bit about like the psychology of writing, and I will just answer this question with a quote from Martin Luther King's speech in 1967 titled "The Other America." He said, "I think America must see that riots do not develop out of thin air. Certain conditions continue to exist in our society which must be condemned as vigorously as we condemn riots. But in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last few years. It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity. And so, in a real sense, our nation's summers of riots are caused by our nation's winters of delay. And as long as America postpones justice, we stand in the position of having these reoccurrences of violence and riots over and over again. Social justice and progress are the absolute guarantors of riot prevention. So I will leave you guys with that. And that was in 1967, and it's 2020. And I mean, the parallels are astounding with, the riots in the summer. And it's summer. There's, things happening, protests. So just for yourself, just think about what that means for you, however you're taking that, and have those conversations with people. And consider your approach, consider your words, really listen to others' stories and perspectives, and learn. Be willing to be a lifelong learner. Those are the three things that I want to leave you guys with. And as always, just walk in power, speak in love, and think clearly, really, as we're going through this whole process. Don't be afraid to use your voice, but come from a place of love and, think clearly. So thank you guys so much for joining me. This was a lot of fun. A link to this speech is on my website. And, hi, Andrew. It's good to see you too. The resources I put together are things that I check out and look at. And if they're helpful for you, awesome. If not, I'm sorry. But, obviously I'm not here to please everybody. But there are some amazing places to start. There's stuff for teachers on there. There's a list of movies you can watch to engage your mind. There's a list of books. There's my personal Pinterest board on racial healing. I love Pinterest. If you love Pinterest, drop, a heart, smash the heart button, because I love Pinterest. And on my racial healing board, there's tons of books you can check out for schools, for yourself. What else? Oh, another last thing, there's followers, people you can follow, influencers on Instagram. If you're looking to diversify your feed and things that you're looking at and you want to be engaged, follow, even a couple of those people. Some of them are my close friends. Some of them are influencers in the community. Some of them are, just fun things, like things about Nigerian culture. Follow my page if you want to as well. But these are just things that I think are helpful. Hopefully you found them helpful. And I so appreciate everybody that's watched today and that's been on. Thank you, Darby, for your kind words. And for this, I've received so much support and love from, I know, like the Filipino community at Fullerton and friends there that I've made from different people. I just appreciate you guys reaching out. It means so much to me. And just remember to take a deep breath. It's hard, but we're going to work through this together, right? All right. Hi, Cynthia. Oh, hi, Myra. I love you too. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And feel free to share this with your friends and check out my website. I love you all. Bye.